Officially, there never was a clone rebellion on Kamino. Unofficially, approximately 20 years after we were created, a special detachment of the Imperial 501st Legion was dispatched to Kamino with orders to eradicate an army of clones that had been bred to take arms against the Empire.
Our story begins several years after Revenge of the Sith, including the disastrous events of Order 66 that nearly wiped out all of the Jedi. In this alternate timeline, the planet of Kamino was never destroyed, but the Empire had intended to phase the clone troopers out in favor of a new soldier, Stormtrooper. However, the clones who had served the then Republic and now Empire so faithfully for all those years were finally fed up with how they had been treated, essentially being forced into retirement and treated like cattle, along with other nightmares that plagued them, such as killing their commanders during Order 66. Among other distasteful orders they had followed of the Empires, they grew to hate them and decided they would rise up against and take over the Empire, or die trying. The movement was led by none other than Commander Cody, a clone known well and respected in the clone army. He was always conflicted with the actions he had done against his Jedi General Obi-Wan Kenobi, and between that and other inhumane orders given to him by the Empire throughout the years. He was fed up. He secretly had discovered the inhibitor chips placed inside his brain, making him do the actions against his will. He had it surgically removed, and over time secretly informed other brothers of this vile secret. During a busy day in the Imperial Senate at Coruscant, Cody defected from his station and led a battalion of other clone commander and ARC troopers abandoning their posts. They made a break for the main Imperial hangar on Coruscant. Their objective was to secure transports and destroyers to use against the Empire. Cody and other clones had been well in touch with other senators that had supported rebellious movements, such as Mon Mothma and Bail Organa, the latter of which had agreed to propose a tedious bill to the Imperial Senate the same day of their escape to help distract and allow time for Cody and the other insurgents to do their job. It worked perfectly, with Commander Cody and his battalion of defectors securing 6 Star Destroyers along with multiple transports. It had been surprisingly with little bloodshed, other than some stealth kills on some Imperial stormtroopers. Their experience and technique paled in comparison to seasoned clone elites. Their next main objective, clearing the Coruscant atmosphere and space, proved not too difficult. They simply provided Imperial code protocols to the blockade, and all 6 of the Star Destroyers and other transports made a decoy jump into hyperspace to the Megiddo system. A slight detour to their main objective, but it acted as a good disguise as the system was plagued with insurgency of its own and had called for additional Imperial help. Of course, this was just a distraction of its own, so the Imperials could not track their real destination, the planet Kamino. Cody and the other commanders emerged from hyperspace on the planet of Kamino. Their first real test would occur here. There was 3 Star Destroyers stationed over Kamino. Being a valuable asset for the Empire to protect, they weren't just going to leave it undefended. Knowing that the ships ahead of time were full of Imperial scum and no clone brothers, a dogfight ensued over the planet between the insurgent clones and the Empire. It takes a lot of personnel to fly a Star Destroyer, let alone battle with one, and the insurgent clones were certainly stretched thin. The lead Star Destroyer that Cody was on had taken heavy damage, but overall they managed to destroy all of the ships. They knew the Imperial commanders aboard would at the very least been able to send out distress signals to the core worlds of Coruscant, but the hope was that their objective would be complete or near complete before Imperial help arrived. The main objective of the clones on Kamino was to amass and transport the 200,000 unit strong force that had secretly been bred by the Kaminoan cloners for the past 9 years. These clones had been bred with the sole purpose to aid in rebellion efforts and destroy the Empire. The Kaminoans had informed the Empire that the Jango Fett gene was stretched too thin and they would be unable to produce more clones soon. At least that was officially. In reality, they had their own solution to this problem hidden from the Empire, an unaltered clone of the name Omega. Now you're probably wondering how the Imperials would not have noticed this large army being produced. Well, what the Imperials didn't know was that the Kaminoans had a second large city on the planet called Topeko, which was completely hidden under the surface, hundreds of miles away from the capital city of Topoka. It was large enough to raise this vast army, and more importantly, completely hidden underwater. They were fed inside information of the inner workings of the Empire through spies transporting information they gathered from the capital. These clones were never given inhibitor chips, but were simply raised to be loyal and do what is right for the Republic.
Just like the simulation. Watch those wrist rockets!
And the Kaminoans had initially started to raise this army during the later years of the Republic when there was so much uncertainty in the galaxy. And now with the Empire arisen, their sole purpose would be made to get rid of the Empire. Cody knew it would take a while to transport back and forth the hundreds of thousands fresh clone troopers, but he didn't have a choice. Gunships and other transports were working non-stop, and they were about 3/4 of the way done loading the troops onto the Star Destroyers when a strike team from the Empire emerged, led by none other than Boba Fett. They had amassed 5 Star Destroyers of their own in this short time, and a deadly dogfight once again occurred over Kamino. Being that Project Stardust was nowhere near complete, Emperor Palpatine could not simply use the would-be Planet Destroyer at the time to solve his problems. At the same time, Boba Fett led battalions of clone troopers down to the surface of Kamino with the intent to rid the cloning problem from root and stem. A glorious battle emerged at the surface of Kamino, at the capital city of Tipoca, and trickled into the secret sister city as well. Secret was up now. Although Boba Fett was a great tactician and battle-hardened himself, the stormtroopers were simply no match to the insurgent clones. Though young and inexperienced, they had trained for this exact scenario from the day they were born. Towards the climax of the battle, Commander Cody and 4 ARC troopers surrounded Boba Fett, calling for his surrender. Boba's pride as the greatest bounty hunter in the galaxy was too great though, and in a last-ditch effort he fired a missile from his jetpack, killing 2 of the ARC troopers and injuring other surrounding clones. Cody was not messing around anymore and fired a barrage of bullets right in the gap under Boba Fett's helmet, finally bringing him down. Unlike stormtroopers, clone troopers could hit their marks, and although getting older in age, Cody was one of the most seasoned and precise clones left in the galaxy. The Imperials in the dogfight over Kamino succeeded in destroying the already previously damaged Star Destroyer. Near most of the ship that had been destroyed was evacuated, so it was a loss the clone insurgents could take. The same couldn't be said for the Imperials, who all 5 of their Star Destroyers were currently sinking to the bottom of Kamino, submerging to the depths never to be found again. The older clone insurgents took the younger clones under their wing, giving them commands, which they carried out without hesitation and much better precision compared to the Imperials. The combination of both new and young clones created a dynamic unmatched by any of the Imperial troops. In the aftermath of the battle, thousands had died. Though there certainly were casualties on both sides, it was a crushing defeat for the Imperials, and a decisive victory for the clone insurgents and the Kaminoans. Star Destroyers typically held up to 37,000 personnel each, so with 5 remaining Star Destroyers, they were just able to fit the near 200,000 strong force of clones and other insurgents, albeit it was a bit tighter fit than the Imperial regulation called for. Cody had made a joke of this fact, figuring there was no Imperial officers to dictate against them. They continued and finished up the packing, and their next destination was planet Alderaan. The clone insurgents met in space with other rebel cells in the space of Alderaan, and in 2 days rotation time, they had amassed a monster fleet. Bail Organa, Mon Mothma, and other rebel leaders had successfully rendezvoused with them at this meeting point, and they begun their final preparations. In early 11 BBY, 8 years after Order 66 and the ascension of the Empire, the clone insurgents and other rebels made their stand against the Empire. They decided their best course of action would be come at the Empire with their full force head-on at the core worlds, swift and concise. They would attack Imperial leadership at its source, ripping it root from stem. Their main objective? End the Emperor's reign of terror one way or the other. The rebel fleet emerged from hyperspace in Coruscant space, met by a large Imperial fleet. Though the rebel fleet was formidable, the Imperial fleet outnumbered them 3-1. They had about 20 Star Destroyers in all, with a support craft, compared to the clone insurgents 5 and various other rebel cruisers. There were tens of thousands of Star Destroyers in the Empire's control, but with a galaxy so large, they were spread more thin than they might have realized. Where the insurgents lacked in numbers, they didn't lack in skill. Elite ARC troopers and clone commando pilots were extremely skilled compared to the Imperial units, helping even the odds. Other rebels as well put their heart and souls into the fight, such as the teenage Twi'lek, the name Hera Syndulla. Commander Cody commanded the main attack group and Star Destroyer and carried the special cargo aboard his ship. The dogfight was epic in scale, similar to that of the attack over Coruscant in Revenge of the Sith, but even more was at stake here. For if the clones and the rest of the rebels were to fail, it would mean to the end of any hope of democracy for generations to come. The majority of the fleet played smart, not taking too many unnecessary risks, but engaged with the enemy enough to make them sweat and be focused. The Imperials were overconfident with their large numbers, even if the odds heavily favored them. There was so much going on and so much chaos in the battle that they hadn't realized they mixed up one of their Star Destroyers for one of the rebels. Commander Cody's Star Destroyer appeared to be a smoke and falling towards the surface of Coruscant, when in reality this was just a fake to allow them to enter the planet's atmosphere. The fake worked perfectly and allowed for the Star Destroyer to launch hundreds of gunships carrying elite clone strike teams, both young and old alike. They all had important tasks of their own, Imperial personnel to kill or capture, but there was one gunship in particular that carried the fate of the galaxy in its hands, and the Force was strong with it. Aboard gunship Alpha, Ahsoka Tano, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Captain Rex, Gregor, Wolf, Clone Force 99, a dozen ARC troopers, and Commander Cody himself headed toward the Imperial Palace. There were other gunships with them, one leading them and a couple falling behind. The lead gunship was unfortunately shot down, but bought enough of an opening to allow the rest of the gunships to land at the palace. It was gut-wrenching for some of the clones to return to the very place they had slaughtered so many Jedi before against their will, but they couldn't dwell on the mistakes of the past, but rather give the future their all to right the wrong. The palace was heavily guarded, with the Emperor's very own Praetorian guards being the mightiest of them, but they still stood no match to the seasoned and focused elite clones and the Chosen One's apprentice, Ahsoka Tano, and of course the Master of Sorsu, Obi-Wan Kenobi. They soon broke into the throne room, whose seat was occupied by none other than the Emperor, aka Darth Sidious, Dark Lord of the Sith. Cynical laughter erupted, and as soon as the various companies entered the room, the door locked behind them, by none other than Darth Vader. With Vader in the rear and Sidious now rising from his chair, headed towards them from the front, the insurgents found themselves in a pickle. Obi-Wan Kenobi, Commander Cody, Clone Force 99, and half a dozen ARC troopers faced off against the Emperor, while Ahsoka, Rex, Gregor, and Wolf faced off against Vader. On Vader's side of the battle, there was much confliction for the once Anakin Skywalker, fighting against his former Padawan and close clone friends. Vader ended up deflecting bolts into both Rex and Wolf, killing both of them. But when lightsabers locked between himself and Ahsoka reached out to her former master, pleading with him to right his wrongs and trying to convince him to come back to the light. It was not looking good until Ahsoka mentioned Padme and about how she would not have wanted him to do this, and pleaded with him to stop this tyranny of the Emperor. Vader would still not budge, but then Ahsoka revealed the fact that the kids Anakin and Padme shared lived, and this was enough to move Vader's heart. He was done being a slave to Palpatine. He did everything he asked, but he failed him. It was the final straw for his former master to lie about the death of his children too. The now Anakin Skywalker in Vader's suit, Ahsoka Tano, and Gregor now turned to face off against Palpatine, who had already taken the lives of every ARC trooper with his Force lightning, and just finished Obi-Wan off in the front of them for them to witness. Laughter continued. Only Cody remained in a far corner, badly injured in pain. Even Clone Force 99 was disintegrated by Sidious's Sith lightning. The once prominent duo of the Clone Wars, Anakin Skywalker and Ahsoka Tano, worked together one last time to bring down Darth Sidious. Ironically enough, it was the blast from Gregor that finished off Palpatine and his reign of terror. A clone whose sole design and purpose was to rid the galaxy of the Jedi, but rather putting the final blow on his creator and marking the end of the Sith once and for all. The galaxy had been freed, but at what cost? After mourning the death of his master Obi-Wan, Anakin and Ahsoka would rendezvous with the rest of the strike squad. Word spread quickly throughout the galaxy of the Emperor's fall, and inspired many around the galaxy to turn up arms against the Empire. Rather than working to rid the remaining Jedi, Anakin spent his remaining years searching for surviving Jedi, while raising and training his own two younglings. Ahsoka went along with him, and together they rebuilt the Jedi Order. Bail Organa had been elected as the Chancellor of the New Republic, and with this meant the official end of the Empire. His regime fought hard to bring peace and freedom to every corner of the galaxy, and to continue to fight against the Imperial remnants. Clones were continued to be produced on Kamino, with the sole purpose of maintaining peace of the Republic, and of course, they were produced with no sneaky inhibitor chips. Commander Cody and Gregor spent their final days and retirement on the planet of Kashyyyk. Rather than relaxing and withering away, the two decided to continue to do good and give back. by helping the Wookiees of Kashyyyk rebuild their homes that were torn up and lost by the Empire, who had also previously used countless Wookiees as slaves. The remaining first batch of clones in the galaxy all had their inhibitor chips removed and were taken care of generously by the New Republic, which thanked all clones new and old for their loyalty to the Republic.